Hi, everyone. Today in this training, I'll talk about how to get started on the FASRC clusters with Open On Demand, which is our graphical user interface. Some of the things that we'll cover that I hope after this you'll be able to do your job more efficiently is to learn what Open On Demand is, how to access, understanding how the form to launch the apps works, and then some specific applications that a lot of people use. We're going to talk about RStudio Server, Jupyter Notebook, Remote Desktop, and also talk about the FASRC proxy in case you're using the FASRC cluster, and the Files tab and the Jobs tab that are on the Open On Demand interface. What is it? What is Open On Demand? It's an open source web portal to access the cluster. Usually users have to, way back, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, to access a cluster, you needed to know command line interface. And then one of the HPC centers developed Open On Demand. So there was a graphical user interface to access the clustering instead of just command line. So it's a web-based, so you use a browser, and so you don't need to install anything in your local computer except for the browser that usually comes with it. It's easy to use and simple to learn, very similar to desktop applications. And it is the easiest way to get started on the cluster. One thing to note is that Safari is not recommended for Open On Demand because it can have errors and issues. How do you access Open On Demand? You need an FASRC account. You need to be on the FASRC VPN. So if you're using FASRC, then you use the FASRC realm. If you're using Canon, using the Canon realm. And to access, you just go to this link and I'll show you how to do it. So you type this and it will prompt for your username. I'm using J Harvard as a demo. So you sign in and you can see I am on the FASRC VPN. That's why I'm able to access it. Note that is the vpn.rc.fas. It is not the Harvard VPN, it's the FASRC VPN. Okay, so this is how you log in to Open On Demand, and you can see that the interface is slightly different from Canon and FASRC, so you know where you are. So the Canon has the reddish banner and the FASRC has the grayish banner. But the applications are fairly similar, and how you access this is very similar as well, just the address is different. Okay, so when you choose an app to use, either the remote desktop or Jupyter Notebook or RStudio, there are several things that you need to know. Several of the fields you need to know. The partition is the partition name. It depends on the cluster, and you can check on the link right below the field, which if you, for example, click RStudio Server, there is a link right down here that if you don't know which partition you want, you can click here and it will take you to our documentation to see which partition you need. Memory is the amount of memory in gigabytes. The number of cores, the recommended is at least 2 because you'll be running a graphical user interface. You want at least 1 core for that, and then the other core to run your analysis and commands and all that type of stuff. If you request a GPU, then make sure you select a GPU partition, otherwise you're going to get an error. And the allocated time you would like to use to run your session. Here, these actually, I should have included allocated time. All these fields, the minimum and maximum values for each field depends on the selected partition. And again, you can see those details if you click on the link and go, for example, here, the link that I clicked. If you see, then you can see the maximum number of cores on shared is 48, but Big Mam is 64. And you can see that some of these partitions have different time limits. So if you need to know the differences between each partition, go to our documentation. You can also put an email to know when your job started. You get an email and when your job ends. If you have a special reservation, you can add that to the reservation field. You only have a reservation if you have requested it. That's a very special case that like a specific node will be reserved for you, something like this. And then account, if you have more than one account, one PI affiliation, if you work for two different labs and you want to charge one account versus another, then you can add the account that you would like to charge. Now we're going to get into a specific application, RStudio. And I would like to present a few differences between RStudio server and RStudio desktop. So those are the two RStudios that you can access on the cluster. The RStudio server is the one we recommend, is the go-to RStudio application with easy to install packages. They're pre-compiled, they're super easy to install. You cannot set RLibs user, that's the location where packages are saved. So we set that for you and you cannot change it. The location is this one, the tilde is for home directory, our IFX or studio, and then the image tag, depending on the version that you choose, it's going to be a different name here. You cannot use the module commands when you're inside RStudio server, and you cannot use Slurm commands like sbatch or saccount. The RStudio desktop, on the other hand, we don't set anything, so it's very customized on your end. You can set a lot of things, including RLibs user. You can set where your packages are saved. You can use module load, and you can also use Slurm commands. However, to install packages is very challenging because you need to have all the dependencies, you need to have all of the modules properly loaded and linked. So it's not trivial to use it. We only recommend RStudio desktop if you know all of these and if you also are planning to use multi-node jobs, because RStudio server is restricted to running a job in one node. Even though it's one node, you can still use it in parallel using multi-core, but restricted to one node. Right. Here, I will show you how you can easily install packages and change directories on RStudio server, and I'll also go through the process of launching the app. So I selected here from the home, I selected RStudio server, and then I'm going to ask for a test partition because I'm just testing. 8 GB of memory, 2 CPUs. Let me just show you what happens if I request for a GPU, but don't use a GPU partition, just so you know what's going to happen, what kind of error you see. So this is the error that you will get. So it failed to submit session because your requested node configuration is not available because I asked for a GPU in a partition that does not have GPU. So that's why I'm getting this error. Also, if I try to say, let's say I requested 100 core in tests, which doesn't have. So it will tell you even if I request 64, which test doesn't have, I'm going to see a similar error. So CPU count per node cannot be satisfied. So if you get some error like this, pay attention to what's written because it usually tells you what the problem is in your form. So let's request the right amount that I need now and launch. And here you can see the active jobs. And once your job is available, then you can click here and go to your RStudio. And to install packages, you would do install.packages. Let's try data.table. So you can see that installed in that directory that I told you. So the home directory, R, IFX RStudio, and then because I selected this version, release 316, that's where it's saved. And now if I would like to load the package, it's already there, data table, and I can load it, okay? If you would like to change the directory, let's say if you would like to run your job in Scratch, what you can do is use this file browser here and type, let's say, Holy Labs, and then you can search for your own lab. In this case would be J Harvard Lab, J Harvard users, J Harvard. And then you can, for example, open a test file here. If you would like to change the directory where you're running, I'm just doing this. You can go to Session, Set Working Directory, choose Work Directory, and do the same thing. Click on the three dots and do N, only labs, J Harvard Lab. Okay, and then the same thing. If I would like to run, so now this is my home directory. And all of this is detailed here in the slide. Install package, and if you'd like to open a file. Sorry, I just did the different order. All right, for Jupyter Notebook, you can create your own kernels, but you do need some command line. Kernels is the same as a Conda or a Python or a Mamba environment. So you first create the Mamba environment, the Conda environment, and then you can load it as a kernel in your Jupyter Notebook. How you do it, you first launch a remote desktop app. Please do not create Conda environments inside the Jupyter Notebook terminal, because that's not going to work. So you do have to launch a remote desktop app. And then I won't show you all the details because this takes a few minutes. But if you go to the remote desktop and then you can put test, 8 GB for cores. Let's just do 1 hour and then launch. You connect to the remote desktop. You launch a terminal. So you can here in our compute node, and then you will have to do these commands to create your own Conda environment. And when you create your Conda environment, make sure you install ipykernel. The ipykernel is the package that allows you to see the Conda environment from the Jupyter Notebook. If you don't install ipykernel, you will not see the Conda environment available in your Jupyter Notebook. I will get to the files in a second, how you can copy data files. There are a couple ways, but I'll show you one of them here. Okay. So all of this is documented. The details of how to use Mamba is in our docs as well. And once you create that Conda environment, then you launch a new Jupyter Notebook. If you had an existing session while you created your Conda environment, it will not work. You have to launch a new one. Then you can select the newly created Conda environment as a kernel by clicking on kernel, changing kernel, and then you select the one that you would like. I can demonstrate that too. So Jupyter Notebook, test 2, just 1 hour. Lunch. For the next training, I need to start all the jobs prior to. Okay, so once you have created your Conda environment and installed ipykernel, then you can access that kernel either by, let's say, if you create a new notebook, you can click either here and change to your kernel, to your current environment, or you can click on kernel, change kernel, and then select the one. So this is the one that I created for this training, and I will select, and then you can do whatever computations you would like. I think I installed NumPy, and you can do import statements and run whatever Python code you need. Okay. And then what else? Okay, so if you would like to manage, if you would like to install more packages such as, let's say, NumPy or Pandas or Matplotlib or whatever package you use in your analysis, we recommend using the command line. So keep using, like, you can use in this way from the, like, doing module load Python, source activate your environment. I can do it now. So module load Python, and then you do source activate ODN. And then you would do like Mamba install whatever package, like package name, whatever you need. Okay, this is how you would do the package installation on the command line. And all of this is detailed in this documentation. But you can also do from the graphical user interface. We don't recommend it because if there are any errors, you can't really see what's happening, and it takes a long time also. But if you would like, it is available. So you go to settings, Conda Packages Manager, and then you select the kernel that you would like to work on. So let's say the ODN, and you can search for packages here. So if I would like to install Matplotlib, I would click on it. So the change to is install, and then to actually install it, you click on this cart. It says apply package modifications. And then if you would like to install, you click OK. And here is the status of that package installation. You will see in this bottom right corner. But this may take a while, so I'm just going to keep going with the training. What else? The remote desktop. The remote desktop is the most versatile app that we have. You can launch many different applications. The workflow to launch any application is to load a module, set environmental variables if needed, and then launch the software. You can have multiple applications open. You can have MATLAB, you can have Jupyter, you can have all at the same time, but please remember that you have to set up everything yourself. We have more details on how to do that in this doc. I'll show you, and I'll also demonstrate how to launch. So here we have listed a bunch of different apps: Abacus Console, Jupyter Notebook, MATLAB, ParaView. All of this are available, and I will show you how to. Let me deactivate Mamba. Deactivate. Okay, so module Verge. So if I would like to do MATLAB, I would do module load MATLAB, and then I'm just going to copy this, then paste. Oops, it didn't copy the dashes. And then you can launch MATLAB. Note that if you close the terminal, it will close MATLAB because the terminal launched MATLAB. But you can add a and sign to keep so the terminal is available. But either way, you can still open another terminal and do module load Python, and then module load PyCharm, And if you would like to launch PyCharm, this will launch PyCharm. So you can see that you can have multiple applications open. They're all running on the cluster, just like you would in your desktop with this desktop interface. All right. Okay. What's next? If you are using the remote desktop and you are inactive for a certain amount of time, it may unlock. You're going to see something like this in the middle of the screen. What you have to do is just type your FASRC password to unlock it. The very nice thing about running Open On Demand, if you close the window or if you close a tab, in most Open On Demand apps, you can close the browser tab while the code is running, and the code will continue to run on the background. There is no problem. Like, you come back to it and it will still be running. However, Jupyter Notebook will not. The cell that is running will lose the data and output files will not be written. The solution is to run the remote desktop app and launch a Jupyter Notebook from within the remote desktop. If you'd like to do that, we have documentation on how to do it. It's the same link that Brad posted, the very last link. And you just go to the Jupyter Notebook section. For FASRC, we set the FASRC proxy for users, but for some reason, sometimes it doesn't go through. And if in RStudio, if you cannot download packages from CRAN, or if it's data, you are unable to load libraries from outside via HTTP. If you're trying to use Firefox for web browsing, or if you're trying to access GitHub, so basically anything outside of FASRC, you need to set a proxy. And this is detailed in this documentation. Let me show. And this is dependent on each application. So we have detailed for different, for web browsing, from the terminal, for SFTP, for Stata. So whatever you need, you can look at this documentation and see how to set the proxy to access outside internet, outside of FASRC. Okay, the Files tab. So this relates to the question that Noel asked. So the Files tab on Open On Demand, so this tab here, so if you go to, if you're either on this page, doesn't matter, it's always there, you go to Files, you can either access your home directory or your Scratch. Those are the two default ones. So if you access, you'll go to your home directory where things are, and you can, if you don't have a lot of files, if your files are not big, you can use the upload button to, and then drop, and you can drag and drop files here. If your files are big, then we do recommend FileZilla, the one of the links posted there. I don't know if it's faster, but it's easier. Sometimes if you're dealing with large files, or if you're dealing with directories that have like hundreds of files, Open On Demand will freeze and you'll get an error. This is a nice interface, but it's not meant to handle a lot of files or large files. So you can change the directory here if you would like to go. You see the home directory, and the Scratch, but if you need to go elsewhere that is not listed there, you can click on the change directory button and go to, let's say, Holy Labs that I've been using. Holy Labs. Let's click OK. So you will see a bunch of different labs. If I try to get to somebody else's, we'll say permission denied. You're only allowed to access what you have rights to access. So then JHarvard, it lets me get into, and I go to users, and myself. If I would like to create a new file, I can click on new file. It will create in this directory. It will not create in my home. It will create in the current directory you're in. So if I would like to create OOD example, or let's say training example.python, you can click OK. And then you can also create a new directory, a new folder. let's say training folder, and then it will be here. Training folder. The nice thing about this interface, you can click on these three dots to view or edit. If you click on view, it will be this. Well, I don't have anything in it, so it will be blank. But if you click edit, let's say print, hello there. And you can change how your editor looks. If you like for a different theme, you can put ambience theme, you can change whatever you prefer. And if you're done, you hit on save, and then you can either close your tab, and then if I view my file, you can see that there's something in the file now. If you are in a big directory, let's say lab, and you would like to find J Harvard instead of looking for it, you can go J Harvard and it will filter out. Do note that it's just the beginning of the sentence. If I try to do Harvard, oh, it did work. Last time I tried, it didn't work. Yeah, I don't know why it's working today. Great, so you can do J Harvard, oops, and click on it. All of this I detailed here, but I just wanted to demonstrate as well. So if you use this presentation for future reference, then it is there. Oh, the show dotted files. So if you would like to see hidden files, the files that have a dot on it at the beginning, you can click on this check, and then it will show. You see now I have a lot of more stuff showing in my home directory. So now if we go to the jobs tab, you can see the status of your jobs. So let's do that. If I go to jobs and then active jobs, you can see that I have the Jupyter that I launched, the remote desktop, and the RStudio server. You can see which queues they're in, the partition. You can see the time that I have used. And if you click on it, you can see even more details. The cluster, the account that I'm using, the Slurm status, the Slurm state, it's running. So if I cancel this job, so this is the job ID, this is the Jupyter, okay. Oh, so this is if your remote desktop locks out, this is how it looks. Let me get the password again. Okay, let me close this. Close window. Okay. So if I cancel, let me open the terminal. S cancel. Where's the job ID? If I cancel this job, then now, let me refresh this. Now it shows that my Jupyter job is completed. And you can see the reason why it's completed is because it was canceled. I just canceled using a slurm command. If your job by accident ran out of memory, then here would be out of memory. And I can show that example. This would be the case that if you see something like this, your session is frozen or it's closed. And if you see this yellow status with undetermined, if you go to active jobs and you see undetermined, you click on it and then it will be out of memory. So you try to run a job with a certain amount of memory, but your analysis or your simulation used more memory than you requested. So it ended up in an out of memory error. The solution is to request more memory, or you can change your code, make it more efficient to use less memory. Depends if you are at the borderline of, if you're already asking as much as you can, then you probably have to change your code. But if not, you just increase the amount of memory that you asked for. Oops. If you no longer see your job on active jobs because they disappear after a while, you have to use a little bit of command line. So if you go to your, I should have one more here. Yep. If you click on this one, which it shows as my interactive sessions, if you have a window big enough, you will see these bubbles for each job. So the remote desktop, here they last a little longer than what they last in the jobs tab. If you look at this number, this is the job ID, this learn job ID, and how you can look at the status of the job is with the command s account -j. So if I look at s account acct -j, and let me get the one that is actually ran out of memory, because then it will be a good, not this one, be a good example. So if you paste the job ID, then you can see I ran out of memory, even though it's not on my jobs in this tab here anymore. My MATLAB job is not here anymore. I can still see with the S account command. Again, all of what I talked about is in our docs. You can always access it. We also have our GitHub user codes if you would like to see specific examples of different languages. For example, we have our examples, some R codes in R here. We have some examples of Python. It's also part of our docs, even though it's in a different site. If you need help, if you have any questions, please come to office hours. We can match you with the person that is more knowledgeable in the subject that you're asking. If you would like to submit a ticket, you can do via portal or email. All right. Thank you for coming to this. I hope it was helpful.